So I have set this up by saying we're going to talk tonight about the far right position of the platform. Right now, he claims that they're not on the right, and just for evidence for that, so we all are on the same page. This is from this morning's show. Sean Plunket talking to Duncan Grieve.
To be honest, like, all power to you, but I mean, I always think unless you're actually bringing in sufficient income to meet your bills, then you're living on borrowed time. Yeah. And you know, and I guess the thing I would say is, like, I do think that there is potentially a business opportunity for a right-leaning.
Well, we're not taking money off the government like you are, which is a bit challenging for us.
Yeah, but the government.
So just so you know, I heard this interview because I tortured myself for a couple of hours. He asked Duncan how much money comes from the government for spin-off, and Duncan said maybe 1%, maybe 1 to 2% of it. And 14 minutes later, he's still banging on about how much obviously public money is impacting the spin-off in a negative way, where he's been told. And remember, this is the man who says we should believe Christopher Luxon because he said it. Now, Duncan Grieve has said it. Maybe 1% of their overall operational budget comes from, public journalistic fund or New Zealand On Air, and he's still banging on about the evils of taking public money.
And a signal that there is no more money coming.
But you'll still make stuff with the assistance of New Zealand On Air, right?
No, we make almost nothing with the assistance.
And you'll take stuff from RNZ that is made with taxpayers' money, right?
Well, we actually, Sean, you're saying some things that really don't stand up to.
So you never run anything that's run on Radio New Zealand. None of your stuff, nothing done by spin-off stuff ever ends up on Radio New Zealand or their website.
Well, no, it does, but we don't get paid for that. That's something we do out of the goodness of our heart.
Oh, really? And you get nothing back in return?
Rolls, No, nothing.
So you just do it because you're all woke together.
Oh,
look, this is probably like the foolish side of me, the foolish idealist in me. Like, there's the foolish idealist in you that is, I'll just start this kind of right-leaning session and won't worry.
We're not right-leaning, Duncan.
Okay,
we're truth-leaning. We're truth-leaning. There's a difference.
All right.
And in the context, it's entirely different. Of course, we might look right-leaning because everyone else is screaming off down the left.
Right. So we're clear on that? They're not right-leaning, but everyone else is, and everyone else is screaming off down the left. So this is from my podcast when I had Sean Plunket on, and I was asking him, if you are truly a place with no bias, with no political bias, where are your hosts? Now, this speaks to some of you people who maybe don't, and I'm not trying to be patronizing, but don't really understand how especially talkback radio works, right? Balance is not, I'm a right winger, you can phone up if you're a left winger. I'm a left winger, you can phone up if you're a right winger. That's not balance. The person behind the mic has all the power, you have none. The person behind the mic can cut you off, can just choose not to take you, can not take your call, can dump the last 6 seconds if you make a good call. How a real genuine outlet would be balanced is to have a raving right winger on, then maybe the next show would be a raving left winger, then it might be a raving centrist, if that's such a thing, and that would actually be what is balance. So I was talking to Sean about this, and I was saying, how can you claim this balance or no bias when there's no one in your building who has a contrary point to you, who disagrees with you? And this is my point that I'm making about from Sean Plunket himself. He confirms that they're far right. You'll have to stay with me as I explain it, but here it is. So,
well, I would say that the platform in the pantheon of New Zealand broadcasting, does represent a balance.
How so?
That you can't look at the platform alone. You've got to look at it in the context of New Zealand media in which it exists. We're not just balancing ourselves, we're balancing the entire New Zealand media landscape. We are providing a place for voices and ideas that are largely being excluded.
Right. So we're clear. Sean Plunket just said from his own mouth that it's not that they're balancing the platform, although I'm sure he's going to say, but that's what we mean. It's that they're providing balance to the whole media landscape. The quote was, you can't look at the platform alone. You got to look at it in a context of the New Zealand media in which it exists. We're not just balancing ourselves, we're balancing the entire New Zealand media landscape. Now, bear with me, smart people, okay? Imagine a scale with a triangle in the middle and a piece of metal on top. He has just identified that all the other outlets are screaming down the left. If everyone on that scale, and I'm using the word scale because he said balance, if everyone on that scale is screaming off down the left to bring balance to that, where does he need to be? He needs to be on the right. Now, I'll actually go one step further. If 99% of the weight of opinion is screaming off down the left, and there's only 1%, and that 99.1 is me, it could be 60, 40, 20, whatever it is, what that means is the smaller entity on the right has to be further to the right. We all know how counterbalances work. If you've got 50 kilos here and 10 kilos here, the 10 kilo has to be further away from the center point to balance the 50 kilos. He himself is now saying in that interview, you heard it for yourself, it's not about the platform being balanced. They're not. He's suggesting in that, you heard it with your own voice, that we're balancing the entire New Zealand media landscape. And logic dictates, if as he sees it, the entire media landscape is screaming off down the left, you cannot be a fucking centrist organization. That does not bring balance. I've got more, but Chewie, you jump in.
It's absolutely devastating to hear that the Herald is now a socialist rag, and News Talk ZB is a mouthpiece for the Politburo. I'm sure, and he's just so humble that just this man in his basement can balance out the entire media landscape,
and all of them are screaming off.
Every single one of them.
Every one of them.
Look, I know we're truth speakers because I've brought in two lefties. I've brought in Bomber Bradbury and I've brought in Chris Trotter, who are nominally on the left but regularly have some of the most fucked takes I've ever heard. And I say that as someone that held up Bomber Bradbury as a personal hero of mine for years.
Channel Z.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's he doesn't have a full roster of the gamut of New Zealand political commentary or points of view. He's gathered around a whole bunch of people that have been sacked for being too extreme for their previous employers.
Yeah, I thought about starting up a hashtag Free Martin Devlin, but then I thought, nah, I don't want to do that because there's, anyway. But look, I also want to say something from what you just said, Chewie. See if I can jump back to what you were saying. Oh, that's right. The thing about having two nominal lefties on, that's how Fox News sells their Fair and Balanced. They basically have really good, really skilled, really good orators all coming on the right, and they have some Muppets coming on from the left. And they go, nah, see, Fair and Balanced, we've got the right and the left, and they give all the credibility to the right, and the host works with the guest on the right, and it ends up being 2 against 1. And that's what they call Fair and Balanced. That's why I say free speech is to the platform as Fair and Balanced is to Fox News. Next point. If you're going to be gracious and say, well, Pat, your analogy doesn't really work. I get what you're saying and but they could still position themselves centristly even if everyone else was down the right. Okay, let's have a look at the kind of content they're producing. Because I would say this, if I was producing, let's say, an eco type show that was focusing on the environment, ecology, climate change, clean waterways, I bet you that would be considered a greenie type show and it would attract greenie type people. That would be a fair assumption.
Yep.
So here's a conversation that, Sean, I'm not going to play any audio, so you don't have to turn it off if you're annoyed by the audio. Here is a conversation that Mr. Plunket had this morning where he was actually going in, and I heard this, and talking about that some of the anti-vaxxers are spreading this story about this guy who being locked up for being an anti-vaxxer. It's not true.
Oh, yeah.
Story. So Sean Plunket gets on and rightfully goes, it's not true. It's rubbish. It's bollocks. Do you remember the group of people I said last week, Chewy, who are his listeners, who he's pitching to? I used the word QAnon.
Yeah.
I've just put this on most relevant. Have a look at some of these comments from his listeners, right? He's just said, you know, this guy is not being locked up for an anti-vaxxer. He's in prison at the moment for a more serious reason. He said, I'm not going into it. I can't go into it. It will come out in the future, but he's on remand for a serious reason. That's basically his synopsis. I'll read a few of these out, but trust me, of the 674 comments, probably 600 of them are like this. This is his listener. This is the content he's making. This is who it is attracting, right? These are the people that he's making a product for. If you don't think the platform is way over on the right, and I know some people on the Twitter tonight have been concerned about the word far right, but way over on the right, whatever word you want to use, right? If he is not over there, then why is his content attracting all of these people? And actually, I'll take a step back. I'm not even saying if Sean Plunket's not over there, if the platform's not over there. Because Sean Plunket could be a grifter and just putting out stuff there that he wants to attract an audience and not believe it. So we'll just say the platform. We'll be generous. Here's some of the comments about these people just being told the truth about how this person, who is an anti-vaxxer, wasn't locked up for being an anti-vaxxer. I think the first thing that worried me when I heard the platform's news and updates, it seems that the same recordings as mainstream media, i.e. news talk. So no one's doing investigative news reporting. They seem to be feeding off others. So because they take a news feed from NZME,
I've definitely seen that.
Under the New Zealand Bill of Rights, you cannot detain anyone without due court process, which this person said. That alone is breaking our Bill of Rights 1990. You are making things worse for citizens' rights. Wake up, buddy. I would like to see a completely unbiased presentation of the facts of the case by credible investigative journalists. You use terms like anti-vax and conspiracy theories is disappointing, as there are many New Zealanders who are deeply concerned. Notice I haven't skipped any messages yet. Thank you, Sean, for showing us exactly what kind of journalist you are. You are showing yourself to be no different to the mainstream zero journalist integrity. You have made it very obvious to anyone that is actually following this case. And then it goes on. I'm not going to go further on. You just said alleged, and you also have no idea why he was locked up. Then you say nothing else to see here, and apparently you're an investigative journalist. I put that ist in. When you actually find out what's going on, maybe you could then investigate further. Anyway, I don't need to do any more, or else we will be here. But you can see very clearly
these guys all talk the same.
But the thing is, that's the audience. And what I will ask again is, if you're going to be gracious and say that the platform wasn't far right, further on the right, way down the right, why are all the way down the righters listening to it?
Yeah.
Like, if I was building a car to go down a drag strip, right, and that was the idea of the car, then people who wanted to run on a fucking drag strip would buy it. Yep. Isn't that obvious?
And he'll be looking for an audience, and you know, he's not going to push against that sort of audience and that sort of engagement so early in the platform's history. He's going to play to it.
Yeah, I can feel myself getting hit up here. Look, before I do this, I'm just going to say thank you to anthropologist out there who gave us a super chat with no comment, but thank you very much. We appreciate you doing that, because I've got one more point to make, and it kind of wraps up the whole thing, right? This whole thing started off with Sean Plunket treating Suze Wilson like shit over her article about Luxon's dilemma. So this is Plunket's dilemma, right? Because I don't actually believe that Sean Plunket and Michael Laws are as far right as these people that he is attracting. No. Now, that says something in of itself as to how far right these people are. If Sean Plunket and Michael Laws are seen as the sane ones, right? So this is Plunket's dilemma. If that's the group of people he is attracting, when mummy and daddy's business money runs out and he needs to run off a platform and only off a platform, he's got two choices. One is he moves his opinion to that far right position to keep his audience, or he loses his audience and continues, I guess, or takes the position that where he maybe really sits politically speaking, which for him personally might be a normal right voter. So you know what that is? That's Plunket's dilemma.
Yeah.
Luxon's dilemma is about abortion. Plunkett's dilemma is about how do I monetize these far right nutters that I disagree with, but for some reason the content I'm making is quite attractive to them.
Yeah.
That's his dilemma.